Feeder fishing on commercials has without a doubt become one of the most popular styles of fishing nowadays. Personally, I absolutely love that buzz of the tip flying around, and I love the little tweaks and tricks that you can do to nick an odd fish here and there, and that's what I'm going to try and talk to you a little bit about today in this little video, and give you a bit of a guidance about what feeders to use, what hook clamps, what rigs, because I really think this is a key aspect to catching more fish on commercials. So starting with feeder choice, which is the #1 factor in my opinion to catching more fish, and I've got so much confidence in hybrid feeders. I only really use these nowadays, to be honest. I use a hybrid feeder for fishing up to islands, fishing in open water, where I'm fishing for carp, skimmers or bream. I absolutely love this style of feeder, and I've come to the conclusion, to be honest, over years of doing this style of fishing, I only ever seem to use two sizes of feeder. But personally, I use the large feeder for quite a lot of my fishing when I'm fishing for big carp or bream. But the one thing that I've learned is the fact that whenever I'm fishing for longer than say 15 minutes in terms of a cast at a time, I always put a large feeder on, because I want quite a lot of bait around my hook bait to give it the best chance of standing out on the bottom. When I'm fishing for say F1s up to islands, or I'm kind of trying to dob an odd fish here and there in terms of having shorter casts, i.e. under 15 minutes, that's when I'd look to use a little mini hybrid feeder. And the reason why I think it's important to play about with the size of feeder that you use in terms of the length of casts that you have is because it's all about the volume of bait around your hook bait. You want your hook bait to stand out as much as possible, because that's going to be the deciding factor whether a fish takes your hook bait and you catch a fish or not. So having a little pile of feed around your hook bait is really, really good when you're looking to try and catch a fish quickly. So that's when I'll look to use a little mini hybrid feeder. It just offers a little perfect pile of bait around your hook bait, and I think that is really important when you're only looking to catch a fish at a time. If I were looking to try and catch, say, 3 or 4 fish on the same sort of spot and trying to build up a peg, that's when I'd look to use the large feeder and have a little bit more feed around my hook bait to give it the best chance of standing out on the bottom. And to be honest, I want to build a peg and potentially catch 3 or 4 even more fish from the same spot. So have a little play about with the size of feeder that you use, but personally I only ever use these two. Large one when I'm fishing for say 15 minutes or longer, or if I'm fishing to try and build a peg, and I use the little small mini hybrid feeder for when I'm fishing under 15 minutes, short little chucks to up to islands, or if I'm fishing for say small F1s, that's when I look to use this style of feeder. So next up is the actual rigs themselves. Now this confuses a lot of people. When should I use elastic and when should I use a free running rig? Personally, I keep it dead simple, just like the size of feeder and the feeder choice that I use. I've got all my rigs set up here, and what I'm going to do, if you can't see them properly, I'll just put them on a little piece of white card so you can see them. I'll do a little separate cutaway. So this is the large feeder that I use for most of my hybrid feeder fishing, and I'd only ever look to use this size of feeder with a long Guru X-Safe elastic stem with a little speed bead on the end, and I've got a little 4-inch hook clamp there. I'll only ever use 4-inch hook clamps for my hybrid feeder fishing. Just offers a perfect length and it gives you the perfect presentation in my opinion. So when I'm using this style of feed, I use a long X-Safe stem, and that, look at that elastic just pulling out there. You've got to imagine when you've got one of them massive carp underneath your feet, you're playing it, and that big nod of the head. If you've not got this elastic cushioning those little lunges, I've had it loads of times, to be honest, when I've literally lost a fish and I've thought, why didn't I use a long elasticated stem? And don't get me wrong, a lot of fisheries don't allow this, but if I'm fishing anywhere, say Larford, Barston, Boddingtons, and I'm fishing for those sort of big 5 to 20 pound carp, this will be the feeder of choice, 100%. This long elasticated black stem is brilliant, and it casts like an absolute missile too. So it just gives you a little bit of cushion when you're playing your fish underneath your feet. You've got your little 4-inch hook length there, put your hook bait in the middle. It is the perfect trap for those big, wise carp, which can be an absolute nightmare to catch at times. But the thing to bear in mind is that's not the only rig that I'll ever use. A lot of the time, I'm doing a lot of my commercial feeder fishing when I'm fishing up to islands.
If you like these little videos, check out all our content elsewhere. Instagram, Facebook, we're absolutely everywhere. But more importantly, check out the website.
It's the website, it's all about the website, www.anglingedge.co.uk. On there you'll find incredible long videos with tons of detail. Honestly, Rob, we love doing them, don't we? And there's so much there for everyone. That is the place to check out all our stuff.
Like something like Lindholm or going to Packington Summers, something like that, where I'm chucking a little feeder tight as I possibly can to the far bank. Places like Twin Oaks at White Acres, that's a perfect example. I wouldn't look to use an elasticated stem when I'm doing that sort of fishing. I don't know why, but I just can't seem to get these stems and an elasticated stem to work when I'm fishing up to islands. I just really like, and I've got so much confidence in an inline feeder when I'm doing that sort of fishing. One, I think it's the distance. Usually I'm not fishing very far out when I'm chucking up to islands, like up to 30 metres say, and I just don't feel like you need a long elasticated stem for that. And majority of the time the fish that I am fishing for up to islands are not going to be the kind of 20 pounders which you really want to be using a long elasticated stem when you're playing them. So I personally just use an inline feeder for 99% of my fishing when I'm doing it up to islands, or if I'm fishing for small F1s. I just feel like I've got a little bit more control and I don't need that extra cushion of the elastic helping me not lose a fish. So I really do like just a free running feeder, as you can see there. The beauty of this is, a lot of the times it's allowed on a lot of fisheries. A lot of fisheries don't allow X-safe stems, but where allowed, I will use them when I'm fishing for big carp or say bream. But the thing that I've learned over the years is whenever I'm fishing up to islands, definitely use an inline feeder. That's my biggest tip. You'll be amazed at how many more bites and fish you get in your net. And whenever I'm fishing in open water, like I mentioned earlier, like Larford, Barson or Boddingtons, that's when I'd look to use an elasticated stem. And I think the reason why is because it's open water fishing, so the fish can literally pick up your hook bait and swim away from you. So that's when the beauty of the elastic comes in. It's like a little bit of a, well, it is a bolt effect. It's a complete bolt effect. So the fish picks up the whole feeder and swims away. That's where you get those sort of big old massive 2-foot twitchers, you know. But when you're fishing for, say, little crafty F1s or match size carp up to 5 to say £10, when you're fishing up to an island, it's totally different in my opinion, because when you've got your feeder hit the bottom of where you're fishing, tight as you possibly can to an island is usually the best option. And I just feel like an elasticated stem doesn't give you that sort of bolt effect benefit because the fish can't swim away from you. The only way that they can swim is either side to side or towards you. And I've just had a lot more success with an inline feeder. So to recap, inline up to islands and this long elasticated black stem. I'd only ever use a black stem, to be honest, even if I'm fishing for bream. I just feel like that little bit of cushion just gives you that ultimate confidence when you're playing fish underneath your net, and I think it just gives you the best chance of getting those fish in. And that's my little recap, to be honest. One little tip I will say, keep yourself nice and organised. This little feeder box is perfect. It keeps all my feeders in this different little compartment, so I know they're my large feeders. These are my little tiny super mini ones, just in case it's really tough, but that's like the last resort. I'll only ever look to use these sort of feeders. And it keeps everything nice and organised, and it keeps all your stems in the same place. Just gives you a little bit more efficiency when you're on the bank. Hopefully what I've explained about this style of feeder fishing will help you going forward. It's really easy to get confused and get muddled up about what feeder to use, elastic, inline, what sort of hook length should I use. Just keep it dead simple and trust me, it'll help you catch a lot more fish.